Are you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready for some rapid fire, believe it or not.
So I think I stole kind of part of this question that we were just talking about. Scale of 1 to 10. How do you rate Sam Hartman's chances to lead Notre Dame into the college football playoff?
Yeah, so going back to kind of the teams that I thought Notre Dame should beat, and then kind of those maybes, assuming everything goes right, which after last season, we can't necessarily do that. Looking at the Stanford game and the Marshall game, assuming they take care of business in the other 9 games, they got to go 2-1 in the Ohio State, USC, Clemson if they want a definite shot. So overall, I put this at an 8 out of 10. And how I got to that is I took let me make sure I did 9 divided by 12, assuming that they win all the games that they're supposed to. That's 70, a 0.75. And then, like I said, I think they win at least one of those Ohio State, Clemson, USC games. So that rounds you kind of up into that 8 region. So yeah, I'm going to stick at a solid 8 out of 10. And if they can go 2 out of 1 in those 3 games, I'd put it at like a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm 7.5, 8. You are extremely confident. I'm a little less, but still pretty confident. I definitely think they have to win at least 2 of those 3 games. Now that's, not knowing what anyone else is going to do. There's no guarantee. Once you lose a game, there's no guarantee that you're going to get in. But because of that schedule, and now that's obviously also assuming that you're not going to slip up anywhere else. And this is something that we've talked about before. Are they past the slip ups? Stanford and Marshall from last year. That's a big part of it as well. But if they do go 3-0 in those games, then you're most likely zipping right in there. I find it interesting that Notre Dame has plus 3,000 odds to win it all right now. They show up, I think around like the 10th best odds, something like that, 10th or 12th right now in Vegas at plus 3,000. So they're sitting pretty solid right now. I like their chances. And again, when you go back, you look at what they've got, like people are talking about if they get defense. And having Sam Hartman and the points that the offense is going to be able to score this year gives you a little more cushion with the defense. And I think the defense is going to be fine. I think the defense is going to be improved. Now, health and depth, depth slash, like that could be an issue in some areas, like specifically the secondary, especially the back end. But we'll see if that gets addressed here in the offseason if they go out and try to get somebody. But I like what they've got on defense. And based on all those head to head matches we were talking about before, just going into the season, the only time Notre Dame won't have a head to head advantage at the quarterback position is when they play USC with Caleb Williams. So I like their chances in those games. Still like to have Ohio State a little bit earlier to take advantage of some of that quarterback inexperience, but there's only so much you can do about that. So which has the better chance to happen, Jess? Hartman wins the Heisman Trophy or he's a top 5 draft pick next year?
I'm gonna go with that he has a better chance at the Heisman because you start looking at top 5 quarterbacks. There's usually only one drafted, I think, in the top 5. Sometimes 2 might squeak in there. And this year, I think you'll see a kind of a similar trend as maybe 1 or 2 in the top 5. And I just don't see Sam Hartman as being the number 1 quarterback in the entire class. And I don't see him being the number 2 quarterback in the entire class. And that's, nothing against Sam Hartman. And again, this might change if he can really put on a show this year within Notre Dame's offense and maybe answer some of the lingering questions and doubts that people have about him. But right now, on paper, I just don't see him as being the top quarterback of the entire class. And so for that reason, that's why, playing the probability and the odds, I would lean more so towards the Heisman, because if he can have a great year and Notre Dame can go on to the playoffs and maybe, win and make it to the actual national championship, and who knows, maybe even win the national championship overall, then you kind of have to look at, what's the big difference between last year's Notre Dame and this year's Notre Dame, and that would
That
be
definitely
Sam
helps you.
Hartman.
Yep.
And so I think that's where I would lean more so in the Heisman in this kind of conversation.
Yeah, excellent point. And that's kind of a big part of what swung things, I think, for Caleb Williams as well, because they had been in after the. Now, obviously, having Lincoln Riley was a difference as well, but having him and those 42 touchdowns and everything else that we talked about before. Here are the Heisman Trophy odds right now. Williams is the leader in the clubhouse at plus 400 odds. Nix, Penix, and Travis are all plus 1,200. Drake May is plus 1,500. And Sam Hartman also has plus 1,500 odds. He's tied with May for the fifth best Heisman odds right now, or the sixth best Heisman. No, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, fifth best right now. But he had plus 3,000 odds back in December. So he's halved those odds since December. And if you're like me and you got good money on those plus 3,000, pat yourself on the back if you put something down back in December. But I agree with what you're saying. Like, I think it's going to be tough for him. Like, he could be a top 5 quarterback, but not necessarily be a top 5 pick. And the question was, will he be a top 5 pick? And I think that probably Williams and May go in that top 5. I don't necessarily think, as of right now, that Sam Hartman will, but he's got a really good chance to elevate himself. And the point that you made about if Notre Dame is in that playoff mix at the end of the season, then the biggest difference is going to be Sam Hartman. And I think that is going to go in his favor. Tommy Guns said, so would $1 win you
No,
3,000?
100.
No, it would win you 100.
No. 100 would win you 3,000.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So I bet 10 at plus 3,000 back in December. So it wins a little over 300, basically. Yeah.
Nice.
If he wins the Heisman, but it was a easy $10 bet.
I mean, yeah. If you don't, everyone's got $10 laying around, and based on this chat, Sam Hartman's the best college quarterback. So all of you should be putting $10 down and making it easy 3,000 by the time the Heisman Trophy is announced.
So here's a question, son of 66. If the quarterback battle is close going into the fall, do you go with experience in Hartman or upside in Buckner? This is a no-brainer to me.
Experience.
Yes.
That's experience is going to, what is going to win you those close and nitty-gritty games. And, this is, I think, something I've talked about before. And, I know a lot of people don't like the voodoo or taboo word of Brian Kelly, but, one of Brian Kelly's best traits was grinding out some of those ugly games at the end and just making sure that they got the win. And I think that was the difference that you saw in first-year Marcus Freeman last year and losing to Marshall and Stanford, is he just didn't know, from lack of experience, how to grind out, some of those late wins that require, I think, just a little bit extra coaching. So for me,
you're talking about experience factor there.
Yeah,
okay,
the overall experience.
It took me a second to see where you were going with that, but okay, I get it. Just the experience factor. Yeah. I mean, that's why you brought in Sam Hartman, because of the fact that he's got those 38 starts. Like, that's why he's here. I saw some people saying, well, Tyler Buckner knows the offense better. Well, it's still spring. It's like the offense, what the offense wasn't even really known until about a month ago, because you had to switch offensive coordinators. Hartman got a really late start on that because of Tommy Rees taking the Alabama job and everything else. So if it is a close race, you have to go with Sam Hartman. This is not an upside type. See, do you want a college football playoff, berth at a minimum, or do you want more growing pains over the course of the season? Like, if you're talking about upside, you brought in Sam Hartman because he can win you football games. All that experience can win you football games. By the time the season starts, he'll be okay. And he has Navy and he has Tennessee State, to get himself going and more acclimated in that offense as well. So that's, to me, it's a no-brainer. It's absolutely Sam Hartman. Tyler Buckner has to clearly be better than Sam Hartman for him to get the starting job, I think, going into the season.
I completely agree. It's just, to your point, you don't bring in Sam Hartman for no reason. He gives you a better odds opportunity at the whole thing, and that's what you're playing for every year, especially when you're on the stage that Notre Dame is. You don't at Notre Dame, you're not playing, for 8-4, 9-3 solid bowl game. You're
Yeah.
playing for the whole thing every year.
Michael says, I don't need Sam Hartman experience to beat Navy. No, you don't, but it's also the season opener, and you're not going to experiment with quarterbacks and just say, well, let's just go with Tyler Buckner or, for this one because it's Navy. It's you name a starting quarterback, and that's who you're going to ride with, and again, that's why you brought in Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman is not here to sit the bench if they're close going into the season. I mean, if they're close, that's nothing but good news because it means Tyler Buckner has improved quite a bit. So there's nothing wrong with that either. What's that?
I just, a lot of people, it'd be great to see Tyler Buckner, against Navy and Tennessee State. But I mean, let's be realistic, and the team that we've been watching and cheering for years and years is, when does Notre Dame blow out teams that they're supposed to? They play these MAC schools. Those games ended up being really close. And these games that they're supposed to blow people out, it never happens. It never happens. And so I get it. That's good, realistic, things that you might, not dreams, but like things that you would hope to see. But to me, the matter of the fact is Notre Dame just doesn't blow out people like Alabama and Georgia does that they're supposed to blow out. So to me, it's just, that's never a given. I want to see Sam Hartman out there getting better and learning how to control this Notre Dame offense early. So by the time they get into the middle of the season, back half of the season against some of these tougher opponents, he knows how to navigate. He's battle tested within this offense.
Yeah. Anthony says Tyler should be playing most of the second half against Navy and Tennessee State. And that's just what you're talking about. Yeah. If Notre Dame takes care of business, fine. But you got to take care of business first. That's what it comes down to. You gotta dominate the teams that you're supposed to dominate.
Yeah.
Should they? Yeah. Kliff Kingsbury is set to join Lincoln Riley's staff at USC to work with quarterbacks. Big deal, little deal, or no deal?
So this isn't a big deal to me, but this isn't a little deal to me. This isn't a no deal to me. So I'm stuck right in the little deal, and why it's not a big deal is because at the end of the day, Kliff Kingsbury isn't running the show. It is still Lincoln Riley's team. It's Lincoln Riley's kind of overall offense and way of, overall thinking. And I think that him and Kliff have a lot of things in common when it comes to, their offense and how they run things schematically. But why it's a little deal is because you're just adding another great mind to the room. This is a guy that has NFL experience, the trials and tribulations that come along with that, the experience, being immersed in college, NFL and college schemes at this point. It's just another great mind. And at the end of the day, you're not going to say no to another great mind. And so that's why it's a little deal to me, because he's not at the end of the day, he's not running the show. Lincoln is, but he's just another good offensive mind in the room. So it provides a boost, not like a huge boost, but at least a little boost in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's taking a step all the way back from NFL head coach to working with quarterbacks. And remember, before he became an NFL head coach, Clay Helton hired Kingsbury to his staff. He was supposed to be the offensive coordinator at USC, but he was there for maybe a month it was kind of like Gino Guidugli at Wisconsin. Like he got there and then he had another opportunity. He took the head coaching job at Arizona. I think Kliff Kingsbury's been doing it for a long time. He's been working with quarterbacks for a long time, but I think he gets,
Kyler Murray's game is very similar to Caleb Williams' game.
Right. But can you make the case that Kyler Murray regressed this past year? And
you can.
I think that Kingsbury gets a bit of a free pass because he's connected to Patrick Mahomes, and seriously, like other than that, like Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray, who else is on his resume that's like a big deal, either in college football or, because they worked with Kliff Kingsbury. I know that there's been other guys connected to him, like I know that Baker Mayfield, transferred out of Texas Tech and all that kind of stuff, but like, who else is there? And, again, like Patrick Mahomes in that offense was tearing it up at Texas Tech. It didn't translate into a whole lot of success for Kliff Kingsbury in Arizona. But again, he's going back from not even head coach to offensive coordinator. He's going back to being a quarterback's coach. I'm sure he'll be fine, but he's also going to get to work with the reigning Heisman winner, So it's not like that should be that tough a job for Kingsbury. So I'm going with little deal as well, with Kingsbury getting the job at USC. And it's still yet to be completely defined role, it sounds like, as well, because they're saying working with quarterbacks, but they never came out and said quarterbacks coach. So,
well, I mean, if you're Kliff, you're getting a lot of money, from Arizona. Basically, he didn't have to do anything, but I think just to kind of stay on his feet, USC was the easiest position to go to with, like he could basically work as much as he wants. It sounds like kind of put in as much effort as he wants, and that will be enough for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. It's blank that last week's UConn San Diego State men's basketball national championship game is the lowest viewed championship game on record.
It's logical. And the reason why it's logical, whether you like it or not, is they were just two boring teams. Like they don't have the national attention that some of these more true blue bloods, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, insert a SEC team. Not that they're a blue blood, but they would draw more of a crowd. I just think that not enough people care about San Diego State and UConn, and the fact that these are two defensive-minded teams. And again, this isn't taking away from the matchup or the overall. There's a ton of NBA talent on that UConn team, but it's just a boring overall game in terms of what college fans look for. They want the scoring, they want the high pace, and that's the opposite of what that game was going to provide.
Yeah. It got 14.6 million viewers, almost 14.7. The previous low was in 2018 when Villanova, Michigan got just under 16 million. Last year's Kansas, North Carolina game, 18.1 million. So a pretty big difference there. I mean, the whole formula with March Madness, especially from a TV standpoint, upsets early, blue bloods late. That's what it comes down to. It just wasn't sexy enough. UConn against San Diego State. And again, like for people who want to put UConn in that blue blood mix, I'm sorry. But if, if UConn, depending on what your definition of blue blood is, like if they were sexier, if they were blue bloodier, like there would have been more eyeballs on that game, regardless of it was San Diego State or whoever. So it's completely expected that they would get such a low rating for a game like that, a low matchup like that. Fill in the blank. Former Syracuse basketball coach Jim Boeheim has taken some shots at Miami's men's basketball team. He recently said Miami bought its Final Four team, and when asked about it again, he said this, quote, "I tell the truth, and if you're going to get in trouble telling the truth, I said Miami bought their team. I should have just said they did great NIL work. So a phrase was wrong, but they did. NIL got them here. Fact. And NIL helped other teams. Period." Boeheim's comments, Jess, are blank.
Boeheim's comments are filled with jealousy and pity me vibes, in my opinion, because, the jealousy is Boeheim is at the back end of his career and he finally got the opportunity to use this NIL, money. And of course, that's going to be attractive in terms of college basketball and the transfer portal and everything that goes along with it. And so I'm sure that he wishes he had, what's going on now 15 years ago and not when he's, wrapping up his career. And the pity me comes from kind of the same kind of dialogue is, he wasn't able to use or take advantage of these kind of NIL deals throughout his career. And I'm sure his overall philosophy is, I had to work for my national championship. I had to work for my 5 Final Four, appearances. But he was blessed with a guy named Carmelo Anthony. That's what got him his national championship.
Mm-hmm.
So it just feels like a lot of like pity and jealousy towards the back end of his career because he didn't get the opportunity to use these resources now. And I don't know why he's taking the shot at Miami specifically. I think Jim Larinaga is a good guy and a good coach. And it's not like they played within the rules. Everyone had the opportunity to play within the rules. And that's
it.
why I think it's even more of a jealousy and pity me situation.
That's exactly it. It's selective outrage, and it's always selective outrage from guys like Boeheim and Coach K and the Sabans of the world. They'll act like, oh, we're going to take the high road in this instant. As long as the system is working in their favor. But the minute things pivot and the system doesn't completely support them, they start whining about all these inequities because they don't have every advantage now. And you're exactly right. Like Boeheim had no problem with Carmelo Anthony, a one and done guy back in 2003. That was part of the system as well. And, whatever system he had for decades, almost 5 decades, he was completely fine with it. Things changed a little bit at the end, and he's going to go out whining about it because he always whines about stuff. That's what he's always done whenever things don't completely fit him. And, you said it exactly right there at the end. Like the system is what the system is. It's there for everyone to use and take advantage of if they choose. Apparently he couldn't take advantage of it in that way, and or Syracuse wouldn't take advantage of it, but like, just because you choose to use the system doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Just ask old Jimbo down there at Texas A&M. They went all in on NIL too, and it hasn't necessarily worked out for them just yet. So So the NBA's play-in games start tonight. Fill in the blank. Those play-in games are blank.
The NBA play-in games are not as exciting as they could be. So tonight features the Atlanta Hawks and the Miami Heat. Not really too stoked about that matchup. Miami's a good defensive team, but they just don't have anybody offensively that's like a superstar, right? And you start looking at Atlanta. Overall, they're not great either. Trae Young, they just play average basketball. And I see a lot of people complaining about these play-in games, saying, that essentially why, they don't necessarily like them. And I tend to agree with kind of based off of that Miami and Atlanta, matchup. But then you start looking at, the Lakers and Timberwolves matchup tonight. That game would be a lot better if, I don't know, Rudy Gobert didn't throw a punch at his teammate and now is suspended for this game, a guy that they acquired in the offseason, gave up a lot for, and now he can't play. And then another one of their players, Daniels or McDaniels, I can't remember which one, was so frustrated with what was going on in the team huddle that he punched a wall going into the locker room and broke his hand. So now you're out without 2 of your starters in a do or die game, that your whole season rides on. So these games are somewhat exciting, but they could be a lot more exciting considering the Timberwolves are missing 2 starters and the Heat and Hawks game is just kind of blah as is.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to do like full breakdowns of all these matchups tonight. I just think like the idea, this is what, the 3rd year that they've done these play-in games now, something like that. Is that right? Like,
yes,
I just think it's been good for the NBA. I think that having these play-in games kind of generates a little excitement with these teams fighting to get their way into the full playoff field and all that stuff. So, I think that they've been really good. Like both the NBA and Major League Baseball have tweaked their playoff formats here in the last few years. And I guess for that matter, the NFL did as well, just by expanding an extra wild card team a couple of years ago. So I think it's been good. And I know a lot of people talk about watered down and this and that, but these are one and done, do or die games for the most part, because they get second chances, right? Like if you lose,
so
tonight,
7 and 8 play each other. The winner automatically goes on as the 7 seed.
Right.
9 and 10.
The loser plays another game.
Yeah,
right?
basically the 7 and 8 has to lose twice, and the 9 and 10 has to win twice.
Yeah.
But the 7-8 matchup only needs to win 1. So, yeah, in a roundabout way, that's kind of the format of it all.
Right. So on Sunday night's episode of Succession, there was a major plot twist: the death of one of the main characters. Now, I'm not going to spoil it here on this show, but the show is televised live on HBO every week. It's not a streamer, obviously, like Netflix, Apple, Amazon, whatever, but there's always a chance for spoilers. So what do you think the media's obligation should be in terms of if and when they should reveal spoilers? Like how long after the episode is it okay to publicly be talking about this kind of stuff, do you think?
This is we live in a world where a lot of people are busy. They don't get the opportunity. There's a lot on, and you don't get the opportunity to keep up with your shows live time every week. Like I know, like I'm a couple episodes behind Ted Lasso right now, and so on and so forth. So there's shows that I record, so I can go back and watch them. But I understand that in terms of like breaking news and things to talk about, and you can't necessarily wait until everyone's caught up. Like I understand that. So I would set my limit at like 2 whole days. I think would be my obligation of when things could be discussed, because I think there would be an understanding of, okay, well, I'm a recording person. I should stay away from things that might give me insight of what's going on. But if you're one of those people who wants to keep up with everything, and you love the kind of the gossip that goes around your favorite shows, and I think 2 whole days is reasonable. One day kind of you get that's kind of like your buffer day, and then a second day in case you got to work it back into your schedule if you recorded it. So I'm at a solid 2 days would be my buffer.
Yeah, like I think with the tweeting and stuff like that, I think that's where more things get spoiled, like people on Twitter. And I guess my question is, if you're on Twitter, why weren't you watching the show that you're so attached to live when it
Right.
was on, when it's in the final season and stuff like that? But obviously it's not just this show, but other shows as well. I think for the most part, there's been a lot of media that's done a good job. Like you've seen headlines that just say, major death, or whatever, major plot twist in Succession, but they haven't mentioned it in the actual headlines. There was a major newspaper that actually wrote a fake obituary for the character who died. See, and it's like it's been 3 days now. Or I guess it's only been 2. It's been 2 going on 48 hours, and I'm still not saying it, even though I don't know how much people care. But I think 24 hours is the limit, because it was on live TV, and it's like, if you haven't watched it by then that's on you, and you're probably a couple seasons behind, and you probably won't remember anyway exactly what happened. So 24 hours is my limit, I think.
I knew that 24 would be yours, and
You
I
did,
knew
huh?
that 1 day would have to be
Now, same but different, but I still remember flying home from a Notre Dame baseball trip, the 2005 national championship game between North Carolina and Illinois, getting all the way back. The plane lands, and then someone, I had managed to avoid it. I had the game recording. I was going to watch it when I got home, and then someone spoiled it on the plane. It might have even been on the bus when we were pulling in. They were like, "Oh, North Carolina won." Spoiler, 18 years later. But gosh, has it already been 18 years? It has, I guess. But 24 is my limit for me. So, and see, I still went this whole thing, and I didn't. You've never watched Succession, have you?
I haven't. I have not.
You've got us. We're doing a rewatch of Entourage right now.
I brought that back up.
We're somewhere early in season 2. We started watching them, I think maybe Saturday. I don't know when exactly it was, but we started doing an Entourage binge. And by the way, HBO Max does have Entourage the movie archived on there.
Nice. So I can go back and watch that.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for being here tonight. Again, coming up tomorrow, Brian and I are going to have a live show at 2:00. We'll talk about what happened at Notre Dame. At Notre Dame practice. Vince and I will have a mailbag show Wednesday night as well. So we've got a lot coming up tomorrow. So we've got practice viewing in the morning. We'll get to watch about half the practice. Brian and I will talk about it at 2:00. So we'll plan on being here then. Smash the like button on your way out if you haven't already hit it. And again, we appreciate you being here. Things have been getting a little salty without Salty in the chat tonight. There's been a lot of back and forth in the chat this evening. Jesse, I will talk to you later. Everybody else, we will talk to you later as well. IB Nation Sports Talk.